So thank you for moderating this roundtable. I'm from Grenoble and I'm a professor in Grenoble in intellectual property law and also in digital regulation law. And I will speak about and try to address this critical challenge facing our democracy, it was said before. How can we effectively combat disinformation through the regulatory framework and also with, you said in your question, technological tools? More specifically, I would be exploring two frameworks. The first one is the European one and the other one is the French one. And these two frameworks have done to address this issue and how we can translate these provision, this legal provision into concrete technological solutions. So today I will focus merely on disinformation rather than on misinformation. I will focus on disinformation because it's referring on intentional dissemination of false information and deliberate manipulation rather than misinformation. So let me switch on first the European framework, and I begin with this European regulatory landscape, which was pioneered comprehensive approaches to this challenge. The first regulation, the cornerstone of European regulation is the Digital Service Act that you mentioned previously, adopted in October 2022. And this is truly landmark legislation that fundamentally reshapes on how online platforms must address harmful content. The DSA takes what I call a dual approach to disinformation. The first, it treats certain disinformation as a legal content to all online intermediaries must combat. This applies when false information violates existing laws, for instance, or such as defamation or fraud statutes. But more innovatively, the DSA also addresses disinformation as socially harmful content, even when it's not technically illegal. For this category, special obligation apply to what we call very large online platforms and also for very large online search engines. There are services with more than 45 million monthly active users in EU. Think to Facebook, YouTube, Google, TikTok are a very large online platform or very large online search engines. This graduated approach is crucial in the European regulation. It recognizes that not on all platforms have the same capacity or present the same systemic risk. A small blog hosting service shouldn't face the same regulatory burden as a global social media giant as Meta or as YouTube. So there is a very opportune difference between the small blog and the very large online platform. And the regulatory requirements scale with this platform size and the potential impact. What are the risks? The regulation is a risk-based regulation. So what exactly must the very large platform do? The DSA introduces what's called a risk-based regulatory model centered on two core obligations. The first one is the risk assessment in the Article 34, and the second one is the risk mitigation in the Article 35. First, the risk assessment, what is it? The very large online platform of very large research engines requires to conduct annual assessments of systemic risk stemmed for their service. This information is explicitly listed into this systemic risk. Plus, platform must examine how their design, their algorithms, and also the business models might amplify the false information. The second is the risk mitigation at the Article 35. And this article requires that platform to implement reasonable and proportionate and also effective measures to address the risk that they have identified. Importantly, this measure must respect fundamental rights, particularly freedom of expression. And beyond this core of requirements, platform must also submit to independent audits, provide also data address to vet researcher, for instance, and maintain always transparency about their content moderation practices. This creates a very strong ecosystem of accountability that goes far beyond the old, in the past, noticed and takedown for the platform. And with this legislation, we also have the code of practice of disinformation, and this framework translates this into concrete action, and the code of practice is crucial for translating into concrete action. The code was established in 2018 as a voluntary self-regulatory instrument, a tool, bringing together platform, advertisers, fact-checkers, and also civil society. It was significantly strengthened in 2022 with the DSA, because there is a very important development. In February 2025, just a few months ago, the European Commission officially integrated the Code of Practice on Disinformation into the DSA framework. It becomes then fully operational the 1st of July 2025. This transformation from voluntary to mandatory is significant. The code now contains 44 specific commitments and 128 detailed measures covering everything from demonetizing disinformation sources to answering transparency, political advertising, to empowering users with better tools to recognize false content. Let me give some concrete example. Platforms must cut financial, you addressed previously this question, incentives for disinformation purveyors, for preventing ad placement, for instance, next to false content. They must label political advertising clearly, showing who paid for it and how much was spent for this. They strengthen measures against fake accounts and bot-driven amplification. They must provide better data access to researchers and also expand fact-checking coverage across all EU member states and languages. Importantly, the code includes measurable key performance indicators, KPI, and strong monetary frameworks. Platform designed with the DSA now report every 6 months on their implementation, and it's just aspirational policy, but it's a real enforceable compliance. The second, I go faster. The second regulation is on AI Act. The major piece of this European regulation from June 2024, which especially addresses the question of deepfake, particularly on the Article 50, it establishes a transparency obligation. Anyone generating deepfake defined as, this is the most important impact of AI Act. We have a definition of deepfake, defined as AI manipulated content resembling real person or event, must clearly disclose that content is artificially created. This applied, of course, to image, but also for audio and also for video. There is an important exception for artistic and satirical works, and this disclosure must not hamper the work's display or enjoyment. The balance between the protection against deception and the freedom of artistic exception is very important. I move to the French framework. France has been proactive with two key laws. The first one is the fake news law in electoral context in 2018, and this law focuses on electoral periods, the 3 months before elections. It's creating emergency injunction procedures, allowing courts to order cessation of false information, strengthening electoral integrity. And importantly, the Constitutional Council required that falsity must be manifest, clearly evident, and protecting legitimate political debate. The law also mandates platform transparency during the election, disclosing advertiser identities and spending, and giving regulators power to suspend foreign state-controlled media spreading disinformation. More recently, we also have the 2024 SREN law addresses deepfake specifically. It modified the article, a specific article of the criminal code to cover algorithmically generated content. Publishing deepfakes without the consent carries 1 year of imprisonment and 15,000 euros fine, doubled for social media distribution. And there is also a specific article for that targets, especially on sexual deepfake online, on a pornographic deepfake, and also targeting women. Challenges. What are the most important challenges? The first one for me is definitional ambiguity. Distinguishing disinformation from the opinion remains contested. The second one is on technological evolution detection. AI advances faster than regulation, and regulation need to be flexible and adaptable. And the third is on enforcement complexity. The DSA is quite flexible, but it creates a very large framework with a lot of provision, and it could create some uncertainty. The fourth is online platform resistance. We have seen withdrawals from voluntary commitments like X pulling out of the code. And then the last one is the fundamental rights balance. We must, on the first part, combat harm, while also we need to preserve free expression and avoiding general monitoring. And it's difficult to find the right balance in between these two rights. Despite these challenges, the framework provides a solid foundation in Europe and also in France system. And now the question is, your question is about implementation and about technological tools. In Grenoble, we submitted a project called Altea project. In that project, we try to translate regulatory mandates into actionable technology. Altea starts with an interesting framework extending Turing's imitation games as generative AI has become widespread. We now face two new games. The first one is the faker game. In this content generated by computer or human. This addresses AI specifically with the Article 50 on the AI Act, and we need systems identifying and labeling synthetic content. And the second game is the Frogger game. The question is, has this generated content used real-world elements, someone's face or voice, for instance? This addresses also the copyright question, but also the personality rights under the French system, but also under the European system. And they are not just concepts. They provide structured way to design the detection of algorithms that map directly into legal obligation. In this multidisciplinary approach that we have in Altea's project distinctive is ignite multidisciplinary integration of computer scientists, legal researcher, and also management researcher. And we have also the pleasure to work with Eleonore and Fujitsu on that project. And the question is, computer sciences develop detection algorithm and technical system. How we build this for legal researcher, translate regulatory requirements into technical specification. What must we do to comply? That's the main question. And while answering this solution in the respect of civil, criminal, and fundamental rights. And the last question is for management researchers who design operational frameworks. How do we actually deploy this organization? You can combat this information working in only one domain. And for instance, a brilliant algorithm violating privacy law is useless. Legally perfect framework that's technically impossible achieves is nothing. And an elegant solution no organization can deploy might as well not exist. Altea creates an integrated solution with this simultaneous, technically sound, legally compliant, and also operationally feasible. And we have tools, but I don't have time to develop. So thank you for your attention.